So that was an ending. They really spent 7 years teasing Homelander going crazy and killing everyone, for the only payoff to be him flying a random billionaire into space. For the entire run of the show, long before I started this accursed YouTube channel, I had a feeling that Homelander really wasn't all that powerful. I felt that with any amount of concerted effort, he could be dealt with, and all this crap could be avoided. And let me tell you, the final season did nothing but confirm my suspicions. Even when he got the V1, he didn't seem to be more powerful in any real way. There are so many ways he could be dealt with, and each new season introduced new and interesting ways to do it. So with all that in mind, how do you kill Homelander? To beat Homelander, honestly, all you need to do is take the straightforward approach. As many longtime viewers know, I'm a proponent of the gank squad method of dealing with powerful enemies. When you are dealing with a supposed world-ending threat, you do not need to play fair. All you need to do is win. Homelander is the strongest superhero in The Boys, that much is certain. He can beat any individual in a 1v1. With maybe the exception of Soldier Boy and the other V1 soups, no one can keep up with him strength-wise, but that shouldn't matter since Homelander is not a good fighter. He's so much stronger than everyone else that he usually can just win fights through brute strength. Whenever he fights someone that's even close to him strength-wise, he really struggles because he doesn't actually know how to fight. In fact, every time he does fight someone on equal footing, he loses, but more importantly, he loses any fight where 2 or 3 heavy hitters are attacking him at once. Yes, he's stronger than every other superhero, but it's not by a significant amount. When he has to fight 2 or 3 somewhat powerful people, he inevitably loses every time. He especially struggles against V1 soups or anyone with temp V. It's already been established that any superhero with V1 is stronger than average, and most of them are still around because they don't age. Besides Soldier Boy, you also have Bombsight and all the other people that they're going to put in that random spin-off that they keep teasing. Soldier Boy already was almost able to beat Homelander multiple times on his own, and if the boys had found Bombsight earlier, I think Homelander would have lost. Both of them are comparable to Homelander, and besides V1 soups, you also have Temp V, a serum that gives any normal person superpowers for 24 hours. Temp V is clearly an improvement over previous iterations of Compound V, because everyone who takes it is clearly towards the higher end of superhero strength. Both Butcher and Huey, when on Temp V, were able to fight Homelander and win. Sure, it was a 3v1, but most of the time when people fight Homelander, he either speed blitzes them or lasers them in half. The very fact Butcher got laser vision strong enough to have a laser duel with Homelander shows that Temp V makes them powerful. If you get a few people on Temp V, especially people who actually know how to fight, they can easily beat Homelander up. In fact, you don't even need a V1 or Temp V hero. There are plenty of normal heroes that can also keep up with Homelander. Besides most of the cast of Gen V, there's also people like Queen Maeve, and even people like A-Train or Starlight are quite powerful in their own right. Queen Maeve is shown to be comparable to Homelander in strength and durability, and only falls behind because she doesn't have all those extra powers. Homelander is the strongest due to the fact that he was made by an experiment, but he's still not the strongest by a lot. How strong a superhero is really down to chance, so there are probably plenty of people that are stronger than him, but they just can't fly or don't have laser vision. Since superpowers are clearly up to chance anyways, you can have 2 people that can run equally fast, but one's also durable with extra strength. Eventually someone will be born who just has more powers than Homelander, or they'll have one of Homelander's powers, but way better. And even if you don't get people who are explicitly stronger than him, they don't need to be. You just need a few people who are close to him in strength. All you need is 2 or 3 people who can at least keep up with him, and then they beat him up. That's it. If Huey can do it while on the super drug, then I think any relatively powerful superhero can also do it. Homelander might be super strong, but he's still vulnerable to specific attacks. Besides the obvious such as the radiation chest blast, other things such as that knockout gas that one guy has seem to affect him. You might be hard pressed to find someone who can beat him in a 1v1, I do believe you could at least find a soup who hard counters him in one specific way or another. If random knockout breath can get him to be knocked out, then I think other random powers can probably affect him in other ways. The fact it took them until the very end of the show to consider recreating Soldier Boy's crazy radiation blast is insane to me. It's not unique to him, he just happens to be the one that was experimented on. Just about any durable enough superhero can get a power removing chest blast if you play your cards right. Once the ability to remove someone's powers is in play, basically all superheroes are moot. I'm surprised that no one in power has tried to make radiation-based anti-soup weapons. They clearly are weak to radiation, as shown both by the mega chest blast and also the fact of just putting them near uranium hurts them, visibly, which is not something a lot of things can do. Homelander was locked in a radioactive room and he was really struggling to get out. It was a bad time for him. I feel that further development of anti-hero weapons would be mostly relatively easy and a good idea. It was a major plot point of comics, for example, though most of the original Boys comics is an awful mess and they shouldn't bring anything over, honestly. And let's not forget the amazing translucent fight in the first season. They got him with electricity. It seems electricity won't explicitly hurt a soup, but it's still going to go through your nervous system and cause chaos. It knocked him out at least. Also in season 1 when they tried to use the drill and translucent didn't work, what if the drill had uranium on it or any kind of radioactive substance? Maybe it would have gone through. Radiation gives him skin lesions, and it's been established that the skin is the part of the superhero that's resistant to bullets. So if they have a lesion, can he just go through it? How effective are depleted uranium rounds against superheroes? Besides the obvious option of straight up violence, there's also plenty of ways to get a superhero that don't involve directly attacking them. As seen in the final season, they can get sick. A disease designed specifically to kill superheroes can kill superheroes. Poisoning is also an option. Both Popclaw and that weird cat girl from the last season get killed by overdose. And there is the ever-present threat of radiation. Learn more about Soldier Boy's chest blast. It can remove all the compound V out of someone's blood, making them a normal person, no longer a superhero. Learn what type of radiation it is and how it works, and then recreate it. And then you can have a superhero power removing bomb. They have essentially a universal kryptonite for every hero, and they don't use it. And that's all there is to it though. Either create anti-superhero weapons, or get a bunch of relatively strong heroes and jump Homelander. Both seem quite viable, and to be honest, in the context of the Boys series, not that hard to pull off. I genuinely think Homelander wasn't that powerful or impossible to beat, people just thought he was, and that fear made them afraid to stand up to him. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy where he was unkillable because everyone was too afraid to fight him. Every time he faced even the slightest pushback, he folded or ran away without fail. The greatest tragedy of The Boys is how it's such a cynical take on the superhero genre that Homelander was unbeatable because every other hero was just as messed up as he was. If you put any real hero in that setting, it would be cleaned up real quick. Now here's the part where I rant about how bad season 5 was. To be clear, I was never a big Boys fan. I dislike the evil Superman trope in general, and generally enjoy wholesome heroes that save the day because it's the right thing to do. So even from day one, I was skeptical of The Boys. But I would be lying if I didn't say season 1 wasn't a banger, especially that first episode. That London Calling fight with Translucent was basically the peak of the series. There are other good parts like the Hero-gasm fight, but something about that first one was so fun because it was really creative and unique in how it handled it. I like them actively having to problem solve and figure out a way to take down Translucent mid-fight because they don't have powers, and then they do. Too bad that energy never shows up again in the series. The show also weirdly slowly lost its scope and budget. Why is the first season bigger than all the other ones? Why was the final fight of the final season in one room where nothing got destroyed? So much for scorched earth and all that. Why was half of the season spent on the V1 plotline, for it to be resolved with minimal issue in one episode? I mean, I know why. It was to set up the Vault Rising show that no one's going to watch. There's so much weird wasted potential. The entire series has been building up to the idea that Homelander's going to go on this insane rampage and kill everyone. Instead, we don't get any of that. The marketing for season 5 shows Homelander in space watching nukes go off, and of course, nothing like that happens. In fact, in season 5, Homelander seems more restrained than ever. He spares, or at least tries to spare, several people, which is not in character for him. The last episode, he only kills one person who's a random billionaire. Where are the nukes? Where is his rampage? Sure, he declares himself a god and promises to kill everyone who doesn't yet believe in him, but then that doesn't pan out because they just beat him the same episode. The final season feels like the setup to a different final season. This feels like the penultimate season to a different show. What was the point of Sister Sage? She was equally complicit in Homelander's entire shtick as everyone else in his regime, and yet she just gets to walk away scot-free? Why were there two whole Black Noirs who both get killed off randomly and none of them have any bearing on the series whatsoever? Why was the final fight contained to one room where nothing gets damaged? How was Homelander able to reach space and back in a few seconds earlier in the final episode, but then during the final fight he's so slow and can barely keep up with Kimiko and Butcher? Does V1 power you up? Because before, when he used his laser vision on Kimiko, he could cut her in half. After getting V1, he can just kind of push her around, and that's about it. Butcher's tentacles are also weird. Earlier, they could barely hold back Bomb Sight, but then against Homelander, he can just throw them around. It's weird that Temp V just disappeared randomly. I know they stopped making it, but I feel like Sister Sage could have made more if they asked her, given that she's the smartest person ever, and all the boys being on Temp V would have made the final fight at least more interesting, I feel. So yeah, that final season was a complete nonsensical mess. It reminds me a lot of Stranger Things. At least this was a show that I really wasn't attached to. I'm more fascinated at how this keeps happening. You would think that by now studios would have figured out the perfect formula to make something so bog standard and safe that it can always make money, but apparently they haven't, and so they just keep making bad things. Anyways, if you're still around, thanks for listening to my rant. I'll see you around.